Machiavelli, one of history's most misunderstood strategists, recognized a fundamental truth that still applies today. Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. This gap between who you pretend to be and who you truly are is where weakness festers and grows. It's the difference between talking about your dreams and actually pursuing them with unwavering determination. Your weaknesses aren't just harmless quirks or endearing flaws that make you human. They're silent assassins, methodically undermining everything you're working toward. They operate in the shadows of your mind, sabotaging your potential day after day, and the most dangerous part, most people never even realize it's happening. Has this ever happened to you? You set ambitious goals in January, feel motivated for a few weeks, then watch as old habits and patterns gradually pull you back into familiar territory. By March, you're right back where you started, wondering what went wrong. This isn't a coincidence or bad luck. It's the predictable outcome of allowing weakness to remain unchallenged. The truth that few are willing to face is that weakness isn't something you're born with. It's something you choose to maintain. Every time you avoid a difficult conversation, every time you postpone a challenging task, every time you make excuses instead of making changes, you're actively choosing weakness over strength. And in a world that rewards results over intentions, that choice has consequences that extend far beyond your personal satisfaction. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to discover might completely transform how you understand personal power and the forces that have been quietly limiting yours. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the globe, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now, I want you to consider something that might feel deeply uncomfortable. What if everything you've been taught about being nice, patient, and accommodating wasn't designed to help you succeed? What if these supposedly virtuous qualities were actually invisible chains, carefully crafted to keep you controllable, predictable, and safely contained within the boundaries of mediocrity? Think about the messages you've absorbed since childhood. Be polite even when you're being disrespected. Wait your turn, even when others are cutting in line. Put everyone else's needs before your own. Accept good enough instead of demanding excellence. These aren't random cultural values. They form a comprehensive system of control that benefits everyone except you. The most powerful people in any room aren't necessarily the loudest or the most aggressive. They're the ones who've learned to identify their weaknesses and systematically destroy them before those weaknesses destroy their chances at success. They understand that in the real world, power isn't given, it's taken. And the first step to claiming your power is recognizing how thoroughly weakness has been programmed into your operating system. This programming begins far earlier than most people realize. Think about it. From your earliest days, you've been conditioned to accept a specific set of behaviors that keep you small. You're taught to apologize when you're not wrong, to doubt your own perception when it conflicts with authority, to put everyone else's needs before your own, as if self-sacrifice is the ultimate virtue, to accept mediocrity because everyone's trying their best, and to never demand more from yourself or others. This hidden truth is difficult to accept, but the revelation is transformative once you see it clearly. This isn't education, it's programming. The system doesn't want independent thinkers who chart their own course. It wants predictable consumers who follow established patterns. The underlying objective isn't to help you realize your full potential. It's to ensure you remain a functional but contained part of someone else's success story. Your journey toward reclaiming your power begins with recognizing how deeply this mindset has infiltrated your daily decisions. The evidence is everywhere once you start looking. You check your phone first thing every morning, immediately allowing other people's agendas, problems, and priorities to hijack your mind before you've even decided what matters most to you today. You say yes to commitments that drain your energy and steal time from what truly matters, simply because saying no feels uncomfortable, even though every yes to something you don't want is simultaneously a no to something you do want. The impact of this programming extends even further into your behavior. You downplay your achievements in conversations because you've been taught that acknowledging success is somehow arrogant, essentially punishing yourself for the very accomplishments you should be celebrating. You avoid difficult conversations, allowing small issues to metastasize into relationship-destroying problems, all because confrontation feels more uncomfortable than silent resentment. Behind the scenes of these seemingly innocent habits lies a profound realization. Your weakness isn't an accident, it's by design. Every time you defer your dreams to a more convenient time, every time you accept disrespect to keep the peace, every time you make yourself smaller to make others comfortable, you're reinforcing the very programming that keeps you trapped. The mindset shift required to break free from this conditioning is radical but necessary. It begins with questioning everything you've been taught about appropriate behavior and asking a simple but powerful question. Is this belief serving my goals, or is it keeping me small? When someone tells you to be realistic about your ambitions, ask yourself whether they're protecting you from failure or protecting themselves from the implications of your potential success. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring what happens when you signal weakness to the world around you. Because once you understand the true cost of appearing weak, you'll never look at your daily interactions the same way again. Drop this in the comments. I choose strength over comfort if you're ready to start reprogramming your mind for power instead of weakness. In this landscape of social dynamics and power, Machiavelli offered one of his most profound insights that few truly understand. He said, "The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves." This wisdom reveals a fundamental truth about survival and success. But here's the revelation that might transform your entire perspective. You've been systematically trained to be neither the cunning fox nor the powerful lion. Instead, you've been conditioned to be prey. The educational system, media narratives, and even well-meaning advice from family members have all contributed to a mindset that prioritizes compliance over competence, conformity over courage, and comfort over conquest. If you're committed to eliminating the weaknesses holding you back, hit that subscribe button now. I share powerful strategies that most people will never discover because they're too uncomfortable to face. This programming is reinforced through a continuous cycle of behaviors that feel natural, but are actually self-sabotaging. With each interaction, you have a choice: to stand in your power or to retreat into weakness. Yet the journey towards strength is undermined by the very impulses you've been taught to follow. Every time you avoid a necessary confrontation, you're teaching your subconscious that conflict is more dangerous than compromise. Every time you accept less than you deserve, you're reinforcing the belief that you don't merit better. Every time you make excuses for people who disrespect your boundaries, you're signaling that your limits are negotiable. The most insidious aspect of this conditioning is how it distorts your moral compass. It makes you believe that choosing yourself is somehow selfish, that having clear standards is mean-spirited, and that desiring more from life is greedy or materialistic. This twisted framework keeps you locked in a prison of false virtue where the key to your cell is within reach, but you've been convinced that using it would be wrong. Behind the scenes of this elaborate system of control lies a stunning hypocrisy that few have the courage to acknowledge. The very people who preach these rules of accommodating behavior rarely follow them in their own lives. Look closely at the most successful individuals in any field: business, politics, arts, or sports. Did they achieve their position by being endlessly agreeable? Did they put everyone else's needs before their own? Did they wait patiently for permission to pursue their dreams? The undeniable truth is that they did not. They were strategic about when to cooperate and when to compete. They prioritized their vision even when others didn't understand it. They moved decisively when opportunity appeared, rather than hesitating out of concern for how others might perceive them. Once you recognize this contradiction between what successful people say and what they actually do, you can begin the process of deleting the limiting programming that has kept you small. This isn't about becoming cruel or inconsiderate. It's about understanding that power isn't inherently corrupt. It's simply a tool that can be wielded with wisdom and discernment. Let's now examine what happens when weakness becomes your default state, and how this creates a dangerous target on your back that invites exploitation from others who recognize the patterns you've been blind to. If you're beginning to see these patterns in your own life, type "awakening" in the comments. Because that's exactly what's happening as you start to perceive the invisible forces that have been shaping your reality. In the landscape of human interactions, there exists a brutal truth that few are willing to acknowledge. In the real world, people aren't divided by the artificial categories we've created: race, gender, political affiliation. At the most fundamental level, there are only two types of people: those who take what they want and those who get what's left. This isn't a celebration of greed, it's a recognition of how human systems actually function beneath the polite veneer of social niceties. Your weaknesses, the ones you've been conditioned to accept, perhaps even celebrate as just being human, aren't merely personal quirks or endearing flaws. They're essentially giant neon signs flashing above your head, broadcasting a dangerous message to everyone you encounter: this person can be manipulated. The illumination of these weaknesses signals vulnerabilities that others instinctively detect, sometimes consciously, often unconsciously. Let's deconstruct this revelation by examining environments you navigate daily. Take your workplace, for instance. The mythology suggests that career advancement comes to those who work hardest, stay latest, and sacrifice most. But the reality tells a different story. Who actually receives the promotions, the opportunities, the resources? Is it the person working diligently in their cubicle, hoping someone notices their dedication? Or is it the person who strategically positions themselves, ensures their contributions are visible, and makes their value undeniable to decision makers? The blueprint for workplace success isn't written in the employee handbook. It exists in the hidden dynamics of perception, influence, and strategic positioning. The person who stays late every night hoping for recognition is often passed over for the person who works efficiently during standard hours but makes sure their impact is unmistakable. This isn't about deception. It's about understanding the unwritten rules of the game while others are playing by the official rulebook that no one actually follows. This pattern extends beyond professional environments into our most intimate connections. The architecture of relationships reveals similar power dynamics. Who typically holds more influence? The person who cares more deeply, or the person willing to walk away? The person who accepts any treatment out of fear of abandonment, or the person who knows their worth and requires it be respected? These questions aren't cynical, they're clarifying. When you signal weakness in relationships, you create fundamental imbalances that eventually lead to resentment, manipulation, or outright exploitation. This doesn't mean you should be cold or calculating with those you love. Rather, it means establishing a foundation of self-respect that others must acknowledge if they wish to remain in your life. Paradoxically, by being willing to lose a relationship rather than compromise your standards, you often create stronger, more balanced connections. The illumination of these patterns isn't meant to discourage you, it's meant to empower you. By understanding how these dynamics function, you gain the ability to transform your position within the them. You move from being unconsciously manipulated to consciously navigating these currents with intention and foresight. Let's explore what happens when people detect these weaknesses in you, and how they instinctively begin testing your boundaries to discover exactly how far they can push before encountering resistance. If you've recognized these patterns playing out in your own life, type "eyes open" in the comments, because once you see these dynamics, you can never unsee them, and that's the first step toward reclaiming your power. When you consistently broadcast signals of weakness, an interesting psychological phenomenon begins to unfold in your interactions. People, even those who aren't consciously malicious, begin testing your boundaries systematically. This isn't a conspiracy. It's human nature. They push a little further each time, seeing exactly how much you'll tolerate without resistance. It starts subtly. A slightly dismissive comment here, an interrupted sentence there, a small request that crosses a line you've silently drawn. What makes this pattern so insidious is its gradual escalation. Your opinions get casually dismissed in conversations because previous dismissals went unchallenged. Your time gets treated as less valuable than others because you've allowed previous impositions without consequence. Your goals and aspirations get subtly mocked or undermined because you've trained others that your dreams are negotiable talking points rather than serious pursuits. This boundary-testing behavior happens across every domain of your life: professional relationships, romantic partnerships, friendships, and even family dynamics. The catalyst is always the same: the perception that you won't defend your territory with conviction. The transformation begins when you recognize that this isn't happening to you. It's happening because of the signals you're broadcasting. Machiavelli, in his uncompromising wisdom, observed that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. This statement is frequently misunderstood as advocating for cruelty or intimidation. But the deeper truth behind this insight has nothing to do with being threatening. It's about being someone whose boundaries cannot be crossed without consequences, someone who commands respect through their unwavering standards. Being feared in this context doesn't mean people are physically afraid of you. It means they respect your standards enough to think twice before testing them. They consider carefully before wasting your time. They weigh their words before dismissing your perspective. They evaluate the consequences before making commitments to you they don't intend to keep. This kind of respect creates clearer, more honest relationships in every area of life. The revelation that often triggers the most profound mindset shift is this: when you display weakness consistently, you're not just hurting yourself. You're actively training others to treat you poorly. You're establishing a blueprint for how people can interact with you. Every time you accept disrespect without consequence, you're teaching people that disrespecting you carries no cost. Every time you allow someone to waste your time, you're communicating that your time has no value. Every time you laugh along with jokes at your expense, you're signaling that your dignity is negotiable. This training happens through a simple behavioral mechanism that psychologists understand well: reinforcement. What gets rewarded gets repeated. When someone tests a boundary and encounters no resistance, they're effectively being rewarded for that transgression, making it more likely they'll push further next time. Your weakness becomes their opportunity. Your hesitation becomes their advantage. Your silence becomes their permission. Let's explore how this dynamic extends beyond individual interactions. and into the broader pattern of comfort-seeking that keeps most people trapped in. Mediocrity, unable to break free from the gravitational pull of what feels safe and familiar. If these patterns sound familiar in your own life, write "boundaries matter" in the comments, because recognizing the importance of establishing and maintaining clear boundaries is the foundation of reclaiming your personal power. Beyond the realm of boundaries and respect lies perhaps the most dangerous trap of all, one that ensnares even those who understand the previous principles. This hidden trap is comfort. While it masquerades as a friend, comfort might be your greatest enemy on the path to transformation. Most people instinctively choose the safe path, the predictable path, the path where they don't have to confront their deepest fears or push beyond established limitations. And that's precisely why they remain stuck in lives they don't want, repeating the same patterns year after year, wondering why nothing ever changes. The architecture of mediocrity is built on the foundation of comfort. Look around at the people in your life. How many are essentially living the same existence they were living 5 years ago? Same job, same problems, same complaints, same unfulfilled ambitions. This stagnation isn't an accident. It's the predictable outcome of prioritizing comfort over growth at every decision point. Comfort creates weakness through a simple biological principle. Adaptation requires resistance. When everything in your life is easy and predictable, you never develop the mental, emotional, and spiritual muscles needed for life's genuine challenges. Just as physical muscles atrophy without resistance, your capacity for handling difficulty diminishes when you consistently avoid it. The revelation here is that comfort doesn't just prevent growth. It actively creates regression. The most heartbreaking dimension of this comfort addiction is what I call the quiet death of potential. Your potential, all that you could become, create, and contribute, doesn't typically die in dramatic moments of failure. It dies silently, one comfortable choice at a time. Every day you choose the path of least resistance, you're choosing to remain exactly where you are, rather than moving toward who you could become. This gradual surrender happens through seemingly innocent decisions, staying in the job you've outgrown because starting over feels daunting, remaining in the relationship that no longer serves you because being alone seems frightening, not pursuing the business idea that excites you because failure feels unbearable, not sharing your authentic perspective because rejection feels uncomfortable. Each individual choice seems small, but collectively they form the cage that traps your potential. Subscribe now to join a community of individuals who choose strength over comfort. Unlike most channels, we don't just talk about success. We expose the hidden patterns preventing you from achieving it. Your dreams don't expire with a bang. They fade with a whisper, as you prioritize temporary ease over lasting fulfillment. The journey toward regret is paved with comfortable choices that felt right in the moment, but compound into a life of quiet resignation. The person who avoids difficult conversations ends up in relationships that slowly erode their self-respect. The person who avoids career risks watches as younger, hungrier colleagues pass them by. The person who avoids physical discomfort develops a body that can't support their ambitions. Let's explore how this comfort addiction manifests specifically in your confidence, skills, and opportunities, creating a downward spiral that becomes increasingly difficult to escape with each passing year. If you recognize this comfort trap in your own life, write "discomfort accepted" in the comments, because embracing productive discomfort might be the most important decision you'll ever make on your journey toward becoming who you're truly capable of being. The danger of comfort extends far beyond the obvious stagnation it creates. There's a more insidious mechanism at work that directly affects your capabilities. Just as physical muscles require resistance to grow stronger, your mental and emotional capacities demand regular challenges to maintain their edge. When you consistently avoid challenging situations, your problem-solving abilities, resilience, and adaptability begin to deteriorate, leaving you increasingly less capable of handling difficulties when they inevitably arrive. This skill deterioration happens subtly at first. You might notice yourself becoming mentally fatigued more quickly when facing novel problems. Your capacity to generate creative solutions diminishes. Your ability to stay calm under pressure weakens. These aren't random changes. They're the direct result of choosing the path of least resistance day after day. The revelation here is that comfort doesn't just prevent improvement, it actively contributes to decline. By avoiding the very challenges that would strengthen you, you're unwittingly programming yourself for future failure. Perhaps even more devastating than the deterioration of skills is the erosion of confidence that accompanies a comfort-centered existence. Authentic confidence, not the shallow variety that comes from social media validation or external achievements, emerges from a specific source, doing difficult things and succeeding. It's built through a process of facing challenges that seem beyond your current capabilities, struggling through them, and ultimately prevailing. When you consistently choose to do only what feels easy and comfortable, you silently install a dangerous belief in your subconscious. I can only handle easy things. Over time, you begin doubting your ability to manage anything truly challenging. This creates a downward spiral of diminishing self-belief. The less you challenge yourself, the less you believe you can rise to challenges, which makes you even less likely to attempt difficult things. The journey toward mediocrity accelerates with each comfortable choice. Beyond the internal costs of comfort addiction lies the realm of missed opportunities, the transformative chances that never materialize in your life because you're unwilling to embrace the uncertainty they require. The defining opportunities in life, whether in careers, relationships, or personal growth, almost always arrive packaged with risk, uncertainty, and the necessity of leaving your comfort zone. People who reflexively avoid discomfort miss precisely these pivotal moments that could completely transform their trajectory. This creates perhaps the most painful reality of a comfort-centered existence, watching others seize and benefit from opportunities that could have been yours. By choosing the illusion of safety today, you're essentially guaranteeing disappointment tomorrow as you observe others occupying positions, enjoying relationships, and experiencing accomplishments that could have belonged to you if only you'd been willing to temporarily embrace discomfort. Let's examine how this pattern has manifested throughout history and continues to shape the difference between those who achieve greatness and those who merely wish for it. The blueprint for transformation has remained remarkably consistent across centuries, yet few have the courage to follow it. Drop comfort is costly in the comments if you're beginning to recognize how the pursuit of ease might be sabotaging your potential in ways you hadn't previously considered. Throughout history, the distinction between those who achieve greatness and those who merely exist has remained remarkably consistent. Machiavelli, in his penetrating observation of human behavior, noted that whoever wishes to foresee the future must consult the past, for human events ever resemble those of preceding times. This insight reveals a fundamental pattern that continues to manifest regardless of era, culture, or circumstance. Those who avoid necessary discomfort today inevitably create massive pain for themselves tomorrow. This historical blueprint can be traced across centuries, from the rise and fall of empires to the trajectory of individual lives. Nations that chose comfortable policies over difficult reforms eventually collapsed under the weight of problems they refused to address. Leaders who avoided challenging conversations with their citizens found themselves facing revolutions rather than resolutions. Individuals who prioritized momentary ease over long-term vision, watched their potential evaporate as years passed without meaningful progress. The manifestation of this pattern in everyday life is both predictable and heartbreaking. Consider the person who repeatedly avoids difficult conversations in their relationship. The momentary comfort of silence comes at the devastating cost of eventually finding themselves in a partnership that systematically erodes their self-respect and fundamental identity. The temporary ease of avoiding conflict transforms into the permanent prison of resentment and diminished self-worth. Or examine the professional who consistently shies away from career risks, declining the challenging project, avoiding the presentation opportunity, refusing the transfer that requires adaptation. The short-term comfort of remaining in their zone of familiarity becomes the long-term agony of watching younger, hungrier colleagues accelerate past them toward positions they once aspired. 2. Their journey becomes a case study in how playing it safe becomes the riskiest strategy of all. Even in physical health, the same principle operates with mathematical precision. The person who consistently avoids physical discomfort, skipping workouts, choosing convenience foods, neglecting preventive measures, eventually develops a body that becomes incapable of supporting their ambitions and desires. The comfort of inaction transforms into the profound limitation of capability at precisely the moment when physical resilience becomes most valuable. Behind the transformation stories of every person you admire, whether historical figures, contemporary leaders, or individuals in your personal circle who have achieved remarkable results, lies a single common denominator that transcends all other factors. They all learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. This singular trait, more than talent, connections, or circumstances, defines the boundary between mediocrity and excellence. These individuals took the phone call that terrified them rather than letting it go to voicemail. They initiated the difficult conversation instead of hoping problems would magically resolve themselves. They made the move that others called risky or premature, while conventional wisdom counseled patience. They invested in themselves when conventional thinking said they couldn't afford it. They launched before they felt completely ready. While others around them chose comfort, they consistently chose growth, not because it felt good in the moment, but because they understood the relationship between temporary discomfort and lasting fulfillment. Let's explore the 4 fundamental lies about success and power that most people believe without question. Deceptions that keep them trapped in cycles of weakness and mediocrity despite their best intentions and genuine efforts. If you're beginning to recognize the growth that awaits beyond your comfort zone, type "discomfort welcomed" in the comments, because naming this commitment is the first step toward embracing the very challenges that will forge you into the person you're capable of becoming. At the core of persistent weakness lies a set of deceptions so deeply embedded in our cultural consciousness that most people never think to question them. These aren't just innocent misconceptions. They're dangerous lies that systematically keep millions trapped in cycles of mediocrity and unfulfilled potential. Let's illuminate these hidden deceptions that might be sabotaging your journey toward power and fulfillment. The first and perhaps most insidious lie sounds innocent, even virtuous. Good things come to those who wait. This platitude is repeated endlessly, creating the illusion that patience alone leads to success. The revelation that transforms lives is recognizing this for what it truly is: a mechanism designed to keep ambitious people passive while others take action. In reality, good things don't come to those who wait. They come to those who take decisive action while others are waiting for the perfect moment that never arrives. This waiting game plays out everywhere. The person who waits for the right time to start their business watches as someone else launches a similar concept and captures the market. The individual waiting until they feel ready for a relationship opportunity sees that potential partner connect with someone who was willing to take a risk. While you're waiting for conditions to be ideal, someone else is adapting to current conditions and claiming what could have been yours. The second lie operates more subtly but creates equally devastating consequences. Everyone deserves respect. This seemingly compassionate idea has been twisted into something dangerous. The notion that respect should be given freely, regardless of behavior or character. The transformative truth is that genuine respect must be earned through actions, integrity, and the courage to uphold standards. When you automatically respect people who haven't demonstrated respectability, you inadvertently devalue your own worth and teach others that your standards are negotiable. This respect fallacy manifests in how you tolerate behavior that contradicts your values, accept treatment that diminishes your dignity, and validate perspectives that haven't earned serious consideration. By distinguishing between basic human dignity, which everyone deserves, and earned respect, which must be demonstrated, you establish a foundation for more authentic relationships and interactions. The third lie masquerades as empowering advice, but often leads to disappointment. Just be yourself, and people will like you. This oversimplified mantra ignores a crucial reality. The self is not fixed, but constantly evolving. The transformative insight is that the wrong version of yourself will inevitably attract the wrong people, situations, and opportunities. The right version, the one aligned with your highest potential rather than your comfortable habits, might indeed make some people uncomfortable. And that discomfort is precisely the signal that you're growing beyond old limitations. This authenticity trap keeps countless people chained to outdated versions of themselves, behaviors, beliefs, and patterns they've outgrown but continue to embody because changing feels inauthentic. True authenticity isn't about consistency with who you've been. It's about alignment with who you're capable of becoming. Sometimes the most authentic choice is to shed an identity that no longer serves your evolution. Let's explore the fourth lie that completes this framework of deception. One that might be the most dangerous of all because it removes your agency entirely and places your destiny in the hands of mysterious forces beyond your control. If these revelations are shifting your perspective on success and power, write "lies exposed" in the comments, because recognizing these deceptions is the first step toward replacing them with truths that actually serve your growth and fulfillment. The fourth lie might be the most dangerous of all because it completely removes your agency. Everything happens for a reason. This seemingly spiritual perspective often functions as the ultimate victim mentality. It creates the illusion that mysterious external forces, fate, destiny, the universe, are orchestrating your circumstances, rather than recognizing that your life is primarily shaped by the decisions you make and the actions you take. This deception is particularly insidious because it feels comforting. It's easier to believe that failure or disappointment is part of some grand design than to accept responsibility for your choices and their consequences. This mindset creates a fundamental power leak. When you attribute outcomes to abstract forces beyond your control, you surrender your agency and become a passive observer in your own life story. The transformative alternative is recognizing that, while circumstances may sometimes be outside your control, your response to those circumstances is always within your power. Your life isn't happening to you. It's responding to you. The outcomes you experience tomorrow are being created by the decisions you're making today. This shift in perspective reveals another critical dimension of personal power that separates those who consistently succeed from those who repeatedly struggle: the relationship between emotion and calculation. Most people lose in life because they make emotional decisions first and then attempt to justify those choices logically afterward. The emotional tail wags the rational dog, leading to predictable patterns of self-sabotage. Successful people operate from the opposite framework. They make logical, calculated decisions first, based on careful analysis of risks, rewards, and long-term consequences, and then manage their emotions around those decisions. They never allow momentary feelings to override strategic thinking. This doesn't mean they lack emotion. It means they've mastered the art of using emotions as information rather than allowing emotions to dictate their actions. This distinction creates a powerful response framework for navigating life's challenges. When someone disrespects you, your immediate emotional reaction might be to lash out in anger, create a scene, or retaliate in kind. But calculation asks a different question. What response will best serve my long-term interests? Sometimes the answer might indeed involve confrontation, but often it requires a more strategic approach, one that addresses the disrespect without compromising your position or dignity. When presented with a risky opportunity, emotion immediately jumps to worst-case scenarios. What if I fail? What will others think? What if I'm not ready? Calculation, by contrast, conducts a more balanced analysis. What's the actual probability of success versus failure? What's the potential upside compared to the downside? Is this risk asymmetric, where the potential gain significantly outweighs the potential loss? This framework leads to decisions based on reality rather than fear. This balance between emotion and calculation extends into every domain of life, from career choices to relationship decisions, from financial investments to health practices. The journey toward power isn't about suppressing emotions, but about preventing them from hijacking your decision-making process. It's about recognizing that while emotions provide valuable signals about what matters to you, they're often poor guides for how to achieve what matters. Let's examine how emotional decision-making systematically undermines your effectiveness and how replacing this pattern with strategic calculation can transform your results in every area of life. If you recognize the pattern of making emotional decisions and then trying to rationalize them afterward, type calculation over emotion in the comments, because naming this habit is the first step toward developing a more strategic approach to life's challenges and opportunities. Emotional decision-making isn't just occasionally problematic. It systematically undermines your effectiveness in ways that compound over time, creating a blueprint for consistent underperformance and frustration. When emotions drive your choices, you develop a reactive relationship with life rather than a responsive one. Reactions are automatic, instinctive, and typically counterproductive. They happen to you rather than through you. A response, by contrast, is deliberate, strategic, and aligned with your larger objectives. This distinction alone can transform your trajectory. The emotional decision-maker consistently prioritizes momentary feelings over long-term consequences, choosing the immediate relief of avoiding confrontation over the lasting benefits of addressing issues directly, or selecting the temporary pleasure of procrastination over the enduring satisfaction of completion. The short-term emotional payoff becomes a prison, trapping you in cycles that feel comfortable in the moment but prevent meaningful advancement. Perhaps most dangerously, emotional decision-making makes you predictable and therefore manipulable. When others can reliably anticipate how you'll react emotionally to specific triggers, they gain tremendous power to influence your behavior. The person who knows you'll always avoid conflict can exploit that pattern. The colleague who recognizes your fear of rejection can use it to redirect your actions. Your emotional patterns become the levers others use to control your outcomes. This predictability leads to another hidden cost, wasting precious energy on battles that don't advance your position. Emotional decision-makers find themselves repeatedly drawn into conflicts, arguments, and situations that offer no strategic value, fighting over principles that don't matter, defending positions that don't serve them, or engaging with people who can't impact their journey. The revelation here is that your energy is finite. Every unit spent on an insignificant battle is unavailable for the conflicts that actually determine your success. The alternative to this emotional reactivity is calculation, a framework that transforms your effectiveness by forcing you to ask fundamentally better questions before taking action. Before responding to any situation, calculation prompts you to consider, what outcome do I actually want here? This simple inquiry immediately shifts your focus from how you feel about what happened to what you want to happen next. Before engaging in any conflict, calculation asks, how will this affect my position 6 months from now? This temporal perspective prevents you from winning momentary battles at the expense of long-term wars. Perhaps most powerfully, calculation introduces the question, is this worth my time and energy, or am I just feeding my ego? This discernment prevents you from being baited into conflicts that serve others' agendas while depleting your resources. The calculated individual recognizes that not every provocation deserves a response, not every insult requires defense, and not every opportunity is worth pursuing. This approach doesn't require becoming cold or heartless, quite the opposite. It involves using your emotions as valuable information rather than as your decision-making system. Your emotions tell you what matters to you. Your calculation tells you how to get it. Anger signals a boundary violation, but calculation determines the most effective response. Fear highlights potential risks, but calculation evaluates their probability and impact. Excitement indicates opportunity, but calculation assesses its alignment with your larger strategy. Let's explore how this balanced approach extends into another critical dimension of personal power, the strategic detachment that prevents others from using your desires against you. Drop calculation is power in the comments if you're ready to start making decisions based on strategic thinking rather than emotional reactions. Beyond calculation lies another dimension of personal power that few ever master, one that paradoxically requires giving up something most people cling to desperately. Here's a revelation that might initially seem counterintuitive. The moment you become too attached to any specific outcome, you immediately lose much of your power to influence that outcome. This hidden truth operates across every domain of life, from negotiations to relationships, from career advancement to personal goals. Why does attachment create weakness? Because it makes you predictable, and predictable people are remarkably easy to manipulate. When you desperately need a particular job, the employer senses your attachment and gains negotiating leverage. When you're overly invested in someone's approval, they instinctively recognize your need and can use it to influence your behavior. When you've convinced yourself there's only one acceptable result, you broadcast vulnerability that others can exploit, sometimes consciously, often unconsciously. This attachment creates a blueprint for manipulation that others can follow without even realizing they're doing so. The person who knows you're desperate for their acceptance can offer it conditionally, extracting concessions you wouldn't otherwise make. The colleague who senses your attachment to a particular project can use that knowledge to redirect your efforts toward their priorities. The more visibly you need something, the more power you give others over your journey toward obtaining it. The alternative to this vulnerability is what I call strategic detachment, a mindset that transforms your position in any interaction. Strategic detachment doesn't mean you don't care about outcomes. It means you want the best outcome, but are thoroughly prepared for any outcome. Machiavelli captured this principle perfectly when he observed, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." The wisdom in this statement transcends its seemingly cynical surface. Strategic detachment requires developing alternatives for every significant situation in your life. Never put yourself in a position where someone else's single decision can completely derail your plans or determine your future. If you're pursuing one job opportunity, simultaneously develop two others. If you're building one business model, have alternate approaches ready if market conditions shift. If you're invested in one relationship, maintain the internal resources to thrive independently if necessary. The revelation that transforms lives is recognizing how this detachment creates freedom that attachment never can. When you're not desperate, you make fundamentally better decisions. Choices based on value alignment rather than fear of loss. When you're not needy, people naturally respect you more because they sense you're engaging from a position of strength rather than weakness. When you're not fixated on specific outcomes, you're paradoxically more able to take the very actions that create those outcomes, operating from a foundation of confidence rather than anxiety. This detachment doesn't represent indifference, it signifies mastery. It's the difference between the amateur who needs to win every point and the champion who plays each point fully but maintains perspective on the entire match. It's the distinction between the entrepreneur who mortgages everything on a single business concept and the visionary who tests multiple approaches simultaneously. It's the contrast between someone whose happiness depends entirely on another person's choices and someone whose well-being remains fundamentally secure, regardless of external circumstances. Let's explore the final dimension of personal power, one that brings together everything we've discussed and manifests it in how you show up in the world without needing to announce your strength or convince others of your value. Type detached but determined in the comments if you recognize how strategic detachment might transform your effectiveness in situations where you've previously been manipulated through your attachments. The culmination of everything we've explored leads to a profound transformation in how you show up in the world. It's time to release several exhausting patterns that keep most people trapped in cycles of explanation, justification, and apology. Stop explaining yourself to people who are determined to misunderstand you. Their misinterpretation isn't a miscommunication problem. It's a strategic choice they're making. Stop justifying your decisions to those who don't have to live with the consequences. Your choices aren't community property requiring group approval. Stop apologizing for taking up space in a world that desperately needs what you have to offer. Your existence isn't something that requires constant pardoning. This revelation might feel uncomfortable initially. You are not here to make everyone comfortable with your success. You are not here to shrink so that others feel bigger. You are not here to apologize for wanting more from life than the mediocrity that most have settled for. The journey toward power requires recognizing that your value isn't determined by consensus. It's established through action. Machiavelli captured this essence perfectly when he observed, "It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles." The depth of this insight extends far beyond its surface meaning. Your worth doesn't come from external validation, prestigious labels, or social approval. It emerges from what you do with the time you've been given, how you create, contribute, and shape the world around you through deliberate choices and consistent action. The hidden truth behind this perspective is that external validation becomes irrelevant to your actual worth once you truly understand this principle. The opinions of those who haven't walked your path, faced your challenges, or shared your vision become interesting, but non-essential data points rather than defining judgments. This shift doesn't create arrogance. It creates authentic confidence, the unshakable knowledge that your value is self-generated rather than externally bestowed. This transformation manifests as embodied power, a presence that doesn't require announcement or validation. You become the person who doesn't need to declare their authority because everyone in the room can feel it. You become the individual who doesn't need to prove their worth because their results speak with a volume that drowns out any skepticism. You become the decision maker who doesn't need to defend their choices because their consistent success serves as irrefutable evidence of their judgment. This embodiment represents the ultimate transformation in personal power. When you truly integrate strength, you no longer need to act strong. Your natural presence communicates it without effort. When you genuinely embody confidence, you don't have to convince anyone you're confident. It radiates through your decisions and interactions. When you authentically embody success, you don't need to remind others of your accomplishments. They're self-evident in how you navigate challenges and opportunities. You become, in essence, the consequence that others must deal with, not through force, intimidation, or aggression, but through the undeniable reality of who you've chosen to become. Your presence changes the energy of every room you enter. Your perspective shifts the direction of conversations you join. Your standards elevate the performance of teams you lead, not because you demand these effects, but because they're the natural outcome of the internal work you've done to transform weakness into strength. This journey toward embodied power isn't about dominating others. It's about refusing to be dominated by the weaknesses that have kept you from becoming who you're truly capable of being. It's about recognizing that the greatest battle you'll ever fight isn't against external opposition, but against the internal patterns that have limited your impact. Let's examine how this transformation manifests in specific domains of life, from professional environments to personal relationships, from physical presence to mental fortitude, and how you can accelerate this evolution through deliberate practice rather than passive waiting. If you feel something shifting within you as these principles resonate, type "becoming the consequence" in the comments, because naming this transformation is the first step toward embodying it in your daily life. As we reach this moment of shared insight, I want to acknowledge something important. The fact that you've stayed with me to this point reveals something profound about who you are. While others clicked away when confronted with uncomfortable truths, you chose to face them directly. That choice to seek growth over comfort already separates you from those who prefer comforting lies over transformative truths. The journey of destroying what makes you weak isn't a single decision, but a daily practice. A continuous commitment to choosing strength over familiarity, calculation over emotion, and standards over approval. Each time you make that choice, you transform not just your circumstances, but your fundamental identity. If these principles have illuminated patterns in your own life, I'd be honored if you'd type "weakness destroyed" in the comments, not just as a declaration of what you've understood, but as a commitment to what you're becoming. Your comment becomes both a stake in the ground and an invitation to others walking the same path. If you found value in these insights, consider leaving a like on this video, not for algorithms or vanity metrics, but because it extends this conversation to others who might be trapped in the very patterns we've explored today. Your simple action could be the catalyst for someone else's transformation. And if you're ready to continue this journey together, subscribe to join our community of individuals committed to becoming the strongest version of themselves. Unlike most channels, we're not interested in temporary motivation. We're focused on permanent transformation through uncomfortable truths and practical wisdom. There's a video right here that takes these principles even deeper, exploring how to apply this mindset specifically to the challenges you're facing right now. Click and continue with me over there as we turn these insights into tangible results in your life. Remember, your weakness is not your identity. It's simply a habit you can change, starting today.